can just do it again. Marcus Marzan, representing Bishop Museum.
Meyer Cummins Land Survey Division, DAGS.
Lily Makaila, Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
And again, Arthur Buto, Office of Planning Sustainable Development.
Thank you all. And I see we have one guest, Jenny Runyon. Mahalo, Jenny, for always joining in on our meetings.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Oh, we have
good to see you all. I went Shelley Zonizer. Oh, there she is. Hi,
Yeah.
Shelley. Oh, I'm sitting in the dark here. There we are. Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks.
Hi.
Also,
And welcome,
Halama,
Shelley.
yes.
Aloha, hai lama. We just did roll call, so yeah. Okay, mahalo for joining. Okay. So next on the agenda is review and approval of minutes from October 1st. And again, mahalo always, Arthur, for doing the minutes for us.
Sure. I would say my pleasure, but it's not my pleasure, but you're welcome.
Do we have any comments, edits? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. This is Meyer.
Is there a second?
Second for the sake of second, but I'm going to be abstaining because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. No, mahalo. Okay. Any further comments?
Just that I'll have to abstain as well since I wasn't there.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay. Hearing none. Any opposed? All right. With 2 abstentions, mahalo. Motion carried. Next on the agenda, public comments. Any public comments, Arthur?
I did not receive any.
And it also doesn't seem like we have any announcements at this time.
Nothing on my side.
Okay. All right. And so next on the agenda is discussion on the changing of the official name of the island of Hawaii. So do we have any?
Yes. So at a previous meeting, we talked about drafting some materials for outreach to the media and to the public before we actually take it up at a meeting to give people an opportunity to submit testimony and that kind of stuff. So with that in mind, we made some assignments, and I think actually Meyer, you were the one that volunteered, and so Meyer sent me some materials that I'll share now. It wasn't in time to make the packet.
Yeah, sorry about the delay, guys.
Oh, no, not a problem. I should have reached out to you weeks ago. It's been very busy. I'm sure everybody's been very busy. Just a second. Okay, I'll make this a little bit bigger. I will email this to you right now, but let me make this a little bit bigger. And I apologize, but let me see if I can do this quickly. Sorry. I'll also, it's not posted on the website yet, but I'll post it on the website.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Most of what I put on, well, I sent Arthur 3 items One is essentially a longer version of the background of HBGN, something digestible that doesn't just go on, but hits the main points that I thought were important. And then I created a shorter version in case we needed that for, posting somewhere or releasing to anyone. And then I also created a much longer document that has a bit of a narrative, but includes the longer version of the background at HBGN, sort of mushing them together. So it talks about the um, the reason why we posted online posted on the agenda to talk about changing the name or discussing the name of Big Island, and then I merged that with the background of HBGN. So anyway, the stuff I sent over is mostly for the board's consideration, and like I was telling Arthur, it's something to edit at the very least. It's good fodder for that, but I wanted to get the board's thoughts on the voice and what other information might we want to include or maybe even remove. Just depends on what the board's thoughts are.
So what I would like to do is start with the Island of Hawaiʻi. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. To start with this document, and you should have all, I guess depending on the speed of your email, should have all gotten them by now, I hope.
I've got it.
Okay. Apologies if you're following along online. I'm going to be scrolling through. Gonna remove this word.
Sure. Oh, thanks, Arthur. Hey, I grabbed a lot of it from older material.
This is the US board. It's not, or I
Hmm.
should say, this is US board. It's not our board.
Oh yeah. Should edit it for clarity.
So I think we need a sentence in here about the US board.
Yeah.
First of all, what its authority is and the GNIS. I can add that later or maybe soon if I can think of some wording. And then we can put that the
With that change, we probably have to remove alternate name, right?
yeah, that'd be correct.
Mm. Hmm.
That's a Hawaii.
Hawaii thing, yeah. And then same with that last sentence, remove alternate slash variant, yeah.
It's gonna abbreviate.
Scroll down.
I just see in the chat, Shelley asked the question, will the board recognize some comments from the USBGN?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Aloha, everyone. I was noticing in the very first paragraph of the document, there was a typo. Apologies for going backwards. In the middle of the first paragraph, simply out should say simply put.
Ah,
Good catch. Thanks, Shelley.
And I also noticed further in the document, there was reference to Hawaii with the Okina, and I believe that the Okina needed to be dropped because it was in reference to the state and not the island.
It's confusing, but our practice, even though it's not the official spelling, and it's not just unique to HBGN, but our practice it's not consistent either in many state agencies is to put an Okina in Hawaii. So even in the name of the board, you'll notice it almost always has an Okina there. So
The easy way to put it is, although federally, the United States federal government may not recognize that Okina, but
correct.
in our realm of Hawaii, we do recognize the Okina. And since we're doing Okina, Kahako, sixth line has Oahu without the Okina.
Mhm.
Okay. Hang on a second. I may need to add.
Until we get to the point where we can convince the federal government to recognize the spelling with Okina.
Well, they do accept the name of the state. That's
Yeah.
beyond our. That's outside.
I've always shared with folks to leave out the Okina in Hawaii is like leaving out the C in California, as it is a consonant. So it's not properly spelled without it, even though English looks, I guess, spelling doesn't recognize a glottal stop as a letter.
True, but it requires a change in the state constitution, right? Which means it has to start at the state level or go through Congress for approval. The BGN has no say over state names.
Yeah, but I do think there's enough practice at the state level, including, I guess, whether they're rules or whether they're laws that the state has adopted to incorporate the Okina and Kahako in all of the legislative work from now on and for past few years and all government documents. So I think they're taking steps in that, and we should do whatever we will do in advocacy for it.
Yeah, so as a board, we took this up a few years ago and tried to understand or identify where the name of the state, where responsibility for the name of the state lies. And it was not clear, not even to the AG. The best determination, I guess, that we could make was that it does need to be an amendment to the Constitution or some kind of action taken by the legislature. And that's sort of where we punted. We sent a letter to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, bringing it to their attention and suggesting that, with that information, that it would require some kind of action on their part, we believe.
Was that in 1990 or was that more recently?
No. It was like in 2014, 2016, something like that.
We'll have a new speaker.
Yeah, that's true. That it was brought to our attention, or it was put on our agenda by the Hawaiian civic clubs. And that's
which I'm the immediate past president. And so those are issues that I've been following, because I think out of sensitivity, what is hard is those rules were imposed on us, including the spelling with the Okina, without the Okina, whatever it is. But when the missionaries came to Hawaii, and I know I'm talking to an audience filled with people who understand this, they were not linguists. So they didn't know how to accommodate, and they started to standardize even the spelling of the way they tried to hear it, so that they could have a standard spelling. And it's very rude to impose standardization on a country or on a people, but it was done. So I really believe we lost some traditions. Like, this is just my own part, that there was a V in our language, an absolute V, versus a W that sounded like a V. As far as I can hear on speakers, we never say ewa. It's always been Eva or Haleiwa. And even the oldest native speakers we have on tape said Eva. I do believe that Waikiki spelled with a V, and because there was a temporary hotel put up in 1820s called Hotel Waititi. So it told me that the people of the area probably spelled with a T. But after the standardization in the 1830s, took away all that spelling. They didn't acknowledge Okina because they didn't know what to do with it. And yet other nations like Tonga, Kingdom of Tonga, started doing in the 30s. Would have been good if we could have done that early. So 78, it brings it in. So the rules about not calling us Hawaii with an Okina once we've adopted the orthography, it becomes a Western imposition on us not to do it. And so whatever we need to do, I think we should do. If that means propose another letter to Senate President and the speaker, new Speaker of the House, and then and because of their behaviors in recent years of determining that all correspondence from the legislature be included with Kahako and Okina, all the letterheads be changed. I believe they even include Hawaii, state of Hawaii, with an Okina on their letterheads. I'm not 100% sure, but in that effort, then we can get folks like the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs to help lobby for those changes to happen. And we have some sensitive people to that, which will help. So whatever we need to do, I think maybe this is the better time than it was in 2014 to ask for this. And I am aware of a few language folks that are purist in the fact that they don't want us to include Okina and Kahako. Some of them are a few Ni'ihau people, not all Ni'ihau people adverse to that, but some are. But they also have to understand the context of how learners are learning the language versus those who grew up in the home speaking language. So anyway, I've spoken enough, but I'm saying whatever we need to do, we should do. If it requires an amendment, which I would not advocate for CONCON, but definitely their method of making amendments to the state constitution, put it on a ballot, I would be for that.
And it was noted before that Rhode Island went through the same process. Their official name until I think it was 2021 or 22 maybe, was Rhode Island and the Providence Plantation. But it took them that long to change it to just Rhode Island. It actually was, I think on the amendment was on the ballot in like 4 or 5 years before that did not pass. So it took them a couple tries before they actually were able to change the name. Okay, I'm not going to wait for this to finish, but I'll put in the Okina later.
Are we using a specific word? What do you call guidance, like APA or MLS or anything like that? And I'm only saying that because I think the APA most recent edition and the one before it requires that whenever there's a punctuation, it is within the quote. Quote is on the outside And as opposed to the earlier editions, there would be, you'd have the quote, end quote, and then you'd have the punctuation after it. But the more recent editions, I think it's at the very top where I'm talking about. There, you see the title. So the current EPA requires that the question mark goes within the quote versus its previous edition had what you had. So we all learned it the way you had it, and then they changed it. And I went like, who is the God that makes those changes? You know, but they had.
Yeah. Here it's correct. Comma.
Yes, that was good.
I just noticed, Arthur, as you were scrolling, you know, back in 72, when the board was established, the head of the Bishop Museum was called the director, but currently is now the president and CEO. So I don't know what we want to use, just because of the language.
Probably
on-
it's in the statute. But
Yeah,
let me see if I can.
I'll pull up the statute. For
I think I've enabled sharing. I'm gonna share your screen. Yeah. You want to share your screen, Meyer, when you got the statute?
sure. Yeah, here we go. I got it here. Share. Yeah, so the statute still has it listed as the director.
Yeah, it was the director at that time, but
Mm.
it has changed since that time. So I
Maybe
don't know
we should.
what we want to use.
Yeah. I guess. Oh, how do I start?
Fine Homes Commission.
Let me go up. Sorry. I referenced the Hawaii Revised Statutes, so we might want to put maybe in parentheses after director. You know,
President.
president since or as of 2016 or whenever it was. Sorry, now known as president, something like that.
And this one should, the chairperson should be chairperson of the Hawaiian Homes Commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing.
Share my screen again.
The statute has homes in lowercase and commission in lowercase.
Yeah, well, all this is in lowercase in the.
Oh, I got you.
And there's no okina in the statute. So if we're quoting the statute, I do need to fix all this, but I think I don't think we're exactly quoting.
Yeah, it's just a list.
So I would say let's just put president.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
Do we capitalize president on the University of
No.
Hawaii as well? And well, if you we just
We'll just make it.
bring
We'll
them all
be
down. Yeah, consistent. Yeah,
consistently inconsistent.
yeah. There you go. Okay.
Okay, so it's probably like that. Just gonna put a reminder here. So here I'm just gonna insert a sentence about the USBGN and our relationship to USBGN. So let me scroll back up a bit. Meyer, your prioritization here makes sense to me, but I don't know that we've ever discussed this as a board.
Oh, gotcha. I pulled it
Something
from.
else that I
Okay.
think is missing is people with a familial tie to that particular location.
Yeah, I agree. I remember, yeah, I remember this, some of these criteria and these instances and priorities being utilized in some of our naming decisions, like particularly the Fisher 8 situation. We did give first priority to the Native Hawaiian speaking communities of those geographic areas, but also, like you said, Arthur, including the lineal descendants of the area, to also have that same connection. But yeah, I don't think we never. I think we used that criteria for that one instance, but I don't know if we ever made it an official thing for all.
It might be a a good topic for future
Sure.
discussion.
It's listed in the style guide,
Ah.
like that. But but it's
As priorities.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's under the heading consult with knowledgeable community members and says whenever possible. So I may not have put it in the right context.
I also think the language of it is like what where it says in those instances the priorities for determining names.
Mhm.
So it is kind of in reference to the past, not necessarily stating an affirmative like process for the future.
Mm.
I do I would like to include mention of lineal and cultural descendants, and would love for that to be inclusive in the first priority, maybe, or however we want to address that. But like Native Hawaiian speaking members of the community where the geographic name is located, like and or long lineal and cultural descendants.
We're kind of on this discussion previously about, people of lineal descent to the area. I happened to notice a post posted by one of my congregants of my church in Waianae. And her grandmother was Abigail Pilila'au, the composer of many Waianae songs. And they were mentioning, because there was a post regarding this house in Waianae that supposedly there were Menehune footprints on in the 60s. And then this one person who's a congregant of my church said, oh, when I was a little girl, this happened. And they took us over to the house and we got to see the footprints when it happened. And it was about right Mauka of Waianae Elementary School. And the place was called Waiʻoli, the area. So I asked her more about it. She went to church on Sunday. She found the song, which she said was Waianae Elementary School song. And I went to Waianae Elementary, by the way. Before I got into Kamehameha, I did go to Waianae Elementary and Intermediate, and I got to Kamehameha. And I said, gee, we never sang this song. So she started to sing it to me and she had shared it with me, but she said that she learned it as a child with her grandmother, Abigail Pilila'au, and their children, were singing it. And so she knew about it. And they knew about the place. And her grandmother, in this article that talked about this Menehune footprint that popped up online, was quoted in that as of course, she's a lineal descendant of that grandmother who was from Waianae, born and raised in Waianae, would be well over 125 years old if she were alive today. But I was thinking, so I went and looked up the name Waiʻoli, which was the name of this place in Waianae, Mauka of the elementary school. And the way they describe it, it sounds like it was a parcel of the Waianae area. And I cannot find any Waianae reference. I haven't gone into New Pepa to go look if I'm sure we'll find something there. But in my church book, and so I have an old book that was handwritten probably about 1840, 45-ish. And they have names of Waianae area. The problem is we don't know where those areas are. Some of them are, but they list them. At least there's a burden of proof that these places exist. I haven't gone to look whether I'd find Waiʻoli there. But I remember another woman born in California and at 2 weeks of age brought to Waianae, raised by her grandmother. She was raised speaking Hawaiian. Leina Ala Tevis was her name. And she talked about Pahoa, Waianae. And it was a broader name encompassing from Puʻeʻa down a bit. And I had her try to describe to me where. And by the way, I'm from Waianae, so that's why I have a passion about knowing these things. But I've not been able to find divisional maps to say this is where Pahoa is. It begins and ends. And now I'm curious about the same smaller area called Waiʻoli that this congregant who's in her late 60s learned it from her grandmother. And she said the other day, because you asked, I went to go drive to Waioli to see if the house was still there. The house is not there anymore. So she didn't get what I was asking her. What I was trying to ask her is, please show me where this is, so I can see where Waioli is. If that's all I have to know is over here is Waioli. And that's what they did with me when I said, you folks say Malaya, you folks say Neneu, show me where it begins and ends. And the old folks showed me where Neneu begins, where Neneu ends, which is different than that which Daddy Braid dictated. So when you see the big stone coral naming in what they call Poka'ibe today, he has Malaya. But the old folks, Manaleo Agnes Pilao Kim, said, no, Malaya is over there where the rest camp is. And this is Neneu. Hence, there was a store when I grew up that was called Neneu's, and it was, I guess, appropriate. I only say this just so that it's kind of relevant to have me read this and see that there are lineal descendants of areas that the people went in and made designations, but the old folks are saying this is not this. And for me, as a person that I consider myself like a historian, I document it. I'm not going to make a judgment and say, you're wrong. But I said, well, this is what I heard from Mrs. So-and-so. And that's just to help document that. So now I'm curious on Waioli. And I'll go look into Pepa. I haven't had a chance to do that. This happened in the last week.
Mahalo hailama for that. No, I think Arthur, could you go back up to those priorities again when you added what was it, lineal descendants and cultural descendants? I'm wondering, should we, in this instance, there was cultural knowledge that this kupuna had. She also had lineal descendancy, but like you said, in this puke that you have, someone might have a puke that has all of this information that was passed down to them, but not actually from those areas. Could we use cultural knowledge keepers or something like that instead of lineal descendants and cultural knowledge experts or keeper, whatever it is, to make a distinction like that?
Well, yeah,
instead
and
of
I
having
wasn't
them lined up
against
in that way?
I wasn't against lineal descendants. I think when I think of lineal, I think of them not only to be connected to the people, but to the place. I don't know if there's a better word, lineal geographic descendants, but
Yeah.
I was just saying that the church book, which is the people of Waianae, wrote it down too.
Yeah.
So they would still be lineal. It's just that
Yeah.
the church doesn't have a map to show where the places are. They just are the people
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. I was just wondering if we should make a distinction between lineal descendants versus cultural descendants. Instead, because lineal descendants will have that tie without question, but I'm thinking, what does cultural descendant mean in this context?
I think my reference is to the burial council's use
Okay.
of those terms, the lineal and cultural. And some of us are able, for me personally, I can I can meet the threshold for lineal descendancy to a handful of places, but I can't for all of the places that like my ohana knows to be descendants of. And so for the state's threshold in that way, we only meet cultural descendancy as a
Okay.
threshold, which is a whole other, wormhole that we don't want to
Yeah.
fall into
Yeah.
with this. But I would like to honor those of us who are unable to meet the threshold for lineal descendancy. Interestingly enough, the definition for cultural descendancy, and again, this is just like a summation of it, but cultural descendants are basically those who go for lineal descendancy but can't meet the threshold, but meet enough information that the burial council members feel confident in identifying them as cultural descendants. It's a little bit of a broader threshold, but there isn't a clear determination between lineal and cultural, just that cultural means you're not able to meet the strict threshold for lineal, descendancy. But yeah, I think there's a lot of folks, especially folks who are disconnected to their mo'oku'ohau and are not able to kind of meet that lineal threshold. I think should still be included as cultural descendants. I think lineal descendancy may be a little too narrow if we go by the Burial Council / the state's kind of guidelines and thresholds for that. So just something to think about.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification, Lily. Yeah, well, I'm good with that, you know, that language, if that's with that in mind. So
Well, to your point, though, Marcus, you know, these three priorities are sort of referring to people.
yeah.
But what I thought I heard you say was that if there's not necessarily a person, but an artifact or a document or written evidence, I guess, or other evidence, it's not tied to a person, but still relates to like the survey maps. Mine are like your survey maps. Should that be listed here too, or is this more of a backward look at what figured into earlier decisions? You know, where it was maybe the people that we were prioritizing.
Well, the statement is that the board has deviated from these sources when other experts. So speaking of people, you know, and
Okay.
yeah, and documents and things can also have a certain level of unreliableness, you know, particularly when it comes to kahakos and okinas. For example, most of the maps and documents that I used in surveying, we don't have any of the diacriticals because they just weren't used at the time. So not to stray from the question, but I think because we're talking about people here, I think we just discuss it as people.
Yeah.
Leave it there.
Okay. Works for me.
Okay.
And I should note that there's no big, nice wrap-up summary on this. I sort of cut it off to get y'all's thoughts before we decide where this is going to go. So sorry, it seems to just peter out.
Well, one thing I would like to do, because this is meant to be an outreach and supposed to not generate interest, but if people are interested, tell them how to contact us or submit testimony, or I'd like to expand on this and maybe include the contact information that's in the notice of the meeting, of the HBGN meeting, where we have a paragraph on information about submitting and providing testimony. It gives my email address and the mailing address of this office. So I'd just like to replace this language with that, but also maybe a statement saying, if you would like to submit testimony about this issue or about the name of the island.
Okay. Do you want me to try to stick it in, Arthur, or?
I can stick it in.
You got it. Okay.
I have a quick process question, and I'm happy to defer it to later in our discussion if better suited. But I was just thinking about, I know that today we're going to be discussing our schedule for the coming calendar year. And I was just thinking it might be a good idea if we could identify a certain meeting where we would want to bring this up. Say something around the summertime. I know that that's kind of pushing it off far, but it would be really nice to give folks like 4 to 6 months notice and tell them, this is the background information. You can, this is where you can watch recordings of the previous meetings. This is how you can attend, upcoming meetings. This is what we're going to be discussing and on which day. And like even go as far as to say, like not to identify that it will be a determination or that it's like an action item, maybe even just mentioning that it will be discussion only, and that we are soliciting testimony and commentary ahead of that discussion, to like make it a more informed discussion. I know that that's not the norm for, I think, outreach and engagement, but it might be a nice like revised process or pathway for us to solicit comments from folks and give them, lots of time to kind of discuss it. And then I think the onus would be on us, once we're kind of prepared, that we can disseminate this meeting information through all of our networks and kind of call it out and share it. Like I can disseminate it to all of our Hawaii Island associations, our beneficiary organizations, and through all of our own networks, we can try to send it out there, put it out there to get the most amount of commentary and discussion ahead of our actual time that we would have to discuss things in the meeting. So we would have all of those comments well ahead of time and could really, take our time to read through them and understand what folks kind of mana'o is and what some of their bigger concerns might be. And it may end up being really clear through that process, or at least that's part of the hope is, we may get a clear direction if we give folks ample time and opportunity to weigh in. So just wanted to throw that out there as well for folks to react to.
That sounds great to me. Because we do want to give people sufficient time to testify or submit information or just get more information from us. And I think whatever this process looks like is one that we should adopt for the other ones that we talked about. Punch bowl and potentially done at a little bit later. Those might be more generate more interest than Island of Hawaiʻi at this point. But I think more time is better than less time.
I agree.
Same
We're
here.
also not in a rush.
Yeah, we're not.
Unlike
We don't have
Fissure 8, yeah, there's no political
we don't
will.
have a
Yeah.
deadline. There is no deadline.
Right. And I think more time, to your point, Lily, is much better for the public. So they actually feel like we listened and, they get the idea that we're trying to be as accommodating as possible. I like that.
It'll also give us a monthly reminder for, 6 months or whatever. Oh, okay, yeah, we should send out another ping to our networks and, or follow up with folks or, however we can do that. It might also be just a good reminder for us kind of every month leading up to it that when we're meeting that like this is, a bigger, broader discussion and help us to kind of ensure that we're soliciting and really outreaching as best we can.
All right. Does anyone else have any other comments on this particular document at this point?
No, I'd like to
Okay.
see after Arthur's sort of revised it with the additional information. I'd like to see it, but yeah, I think it's okay right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Okay. At this point, do we have anything else more to discuss on this agenda item?
Yes, how is this going to go out? Like, is it going to be the DBED PIO or the OHA or DHHL, UH?
I think it might be a good idea, like if we determine when we want this to go out, that we just have all of our agencies and organizations send it out to who we feel are stakeholders or interested parties, or just into our own networks. Does that make sense?
I think that's a good idea. I think it'd be good if we once the meeting materials, whatever meeting materials we want to include, I think we should finalize it and make it a PDF. And then would it be possible to put it on our website, the board's website? That might be
absolutely.
useful. And even if we could put a little blurb maybe that mentions, you know, we have a meeting to discuss, you know, yeah. So like maybe a little news release or just like a little paragraph blurb that mentions the information. And then it might be like it might be a good idea. This may be a little much, but sometimes a good way to get folks to read the background and context is to put the meeting information and contact information embedded in the materials kind of at the end. And so perhaps instead of putting the details of the meeting or how to participate actually in text on the website, it can just allude to it and tell folks to follow the information in the PDF. And then our Kuleana would be sharing the link to the website and the link to the document via email. And then from the DHHL side, we can also, I can talk to our publicity folks and see if they want to circulate it in any of our news releases that we do like on our website or whatnot. And then it can just direct people to the web page with the kind of embedded meeting materials and meeting announcement.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. It's a good idea, Lily.
Okay. So, do you think these documents could be ready for review by next month? Or the next meeting,
I'll do
or
it before then. And I apologize, I did not check with the what are they called? OIP, Office of Information Practices, to see if we could circulate this draft internally by email without having a meeting, without doing a notice and agenda for a meeting. But I think we can, if we're just circulating this draft I think we can do that. But I will check. And if we can do that, I'll just email my revisions. And again, I'm just gonna make a couple, just gonna insert something here about the USBGN and then down here
Okay.
about how to submit testimony if they're interested. And then I'll just email that out. So
Okay.
excuse me. And Halama, you said Oahu is on. You saw Oahu somewhere.
6 line from the top.
Okay. 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 So I'll circulate that and then assume it's okay. Then so I'm sorry, a little unclear. Oh, I guess once we go to the next item where we talk about our schedule, did you want to talk about when this might be on the agenda again? So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit. One of the thoughts was, and I forget who suggested, is that instead of a monthly meeting, maybe we meet quarterly. And if that was the case, it might kind of support what you were suggesting, Lily, of putting this on the agenda in, say, summertime, so maybe our second meeting of 2025. So we could at least have it on our radar and maybe put something about that in whatever materials we put out. But so I'm sorry, I forget where I started from. But was that sort of the thought, was that this would be not scheduled now, but would be at a future meeting, not our next meeting, but some meeting down the line?
I think as soon as we can, as soon as we know what our schedule is going to be for 2025, I think we can select which meeting we would have it at, and then I think we can incorporate that information into this document for the meeting
Okay.
materials.
Okay.
That was my thought.
Okay, that sounds good. So I think on this particular item, Marcus, no further action right now.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did not share the other documents that Meyer sent, but I did email them to you, and that was an HBGN short document, and I guess we'd make the same revisions here that we did on the other one,
Mm-hmm.
and then a longer version. So it looks like the longer version, Meyer, is what is in the,
Correct, Arthur. Yeah. So the most complete version would be the one we've been looking at and editing. I just noticed that there was a call for perhaps needing a shorter one, so I put something together so we had some idea of what it might look like. We can always edit that after we're happy with the longer version. Then we just take out the chunks that we want to use and stick it in the short version.
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, one of my thoughts about this as a press release was that it seemed a little bit long.
Hmm.
And in which, but if we're not going to do like a press release, like through our public information officers, this is fine. But if it's a press release, they might, first of all, they might want to edit it to match the style of the department.
Hmm.
But this is sort of the meat of it, right?
Right.
I don't
Right.
know if you want these stuff.
Yeah, and if needed, I can edit it down. It's fine. I just, again, I thought I'd just throw everything against the wall, see what the board preferred. I wasn't even sure if the voice was okay, so I thought I'd just leave it for the board to determine.
We're going to put your name on it, your home phone
Oh,
number.
good. Remind me to give you the wrong number.
I appreciate it though. Thanks.
No, not a problem. Not a problem. Thanks for your patience.
I see that Kapa has joined the call also.
No, aloha mai.
Aloha,
Hey, Kapa.
aloha, aloha, Meyer. Aloha, everybody. Aloha, Kako.
Okay.
Lily, Lily. Kapa, I sent you these documents that we've been talking about, the island of Hawaii. I emailed those to you. So if you have a chance, you might want to check the email and take a look at them.
Hikino. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I've been following along. And I apologize for making this a much bigger deal than I ever thought it would be. But I can understand the concern with folks who maybe didn't understand why it was agendized in the first place. Hello, Mai.
No, it's good. It's all good. It helps us, forces us to kind of work through the process, given the interest in it, because I think there'll be more of that when we talk about some of these other placements.
And a lot more people know about us now. I have to look for the upside to it.
Well, I don't know. Is that an upside or a downside? Anyway, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
So the last thing on the agenda is schedules for 2025.
So this, I put this on the agenda because we're at the end of 2024. We've had some challenges getting full attendance or fuller attendance at meetings. The last few kind of, we've gotten a pretty steady 4 at least, but it's rare now for us to get more than 4. So it's surprising today we have, right at this moment, we have 6. The only person not here is Holly, who is sick. So that's actually good. But also content wise, maybe there's not enough to sustain a monthly meeting because it does take a bit of people's time. And then with a new semester coming up, people's schedules may be changing. So this is an opportunity to look at that as well. It's an opportunity for me to find a different day so that we can be in the conference room rather than in this spacious library. So I'd like to find a day and time that works for more people more often.
I think for me, we have our commission meetings on the 3rd Monday and Tuesday of every month. And so if we could just avoid those 2 days, that would be a huge help for me.
My schedule is generally open, so I keep showing up. Sorry, guys. So anytime is good for me. You guys just tell me when to show up.
And for me, generally, Mondays and Fridays, I have a little more leeway in my calendar.
If we're meeting quarterly, that would be really great in terms of calendaring, because if it's quarterly, then it's easier for me to say like I really cannot give up this time because we only meet quarterly. And for me, Mondays are really difficult. So other days are fine for a quarterly meeting. Let's just say I put things on my calendar. Do not schedule when it gets scheduled. So I apologize. I know I'm one of the folks that makes your life difficult, Arthur, and I apologize for that.
We are here for you. But you are important. You're right. You are important. Hi Lama, do you have a preference for days?
It's hard to say, especially if we go to quarterly. You know, like right now is good for me. These days are good. It's a Tuesday, and you know, Monday's rough because we don't know what'll come over. And yet, this was 2 Tuesdays ago, I couldn't make it. So it just depends what happens at OHA and how the meetings are scheduled. But if it wasn't an extreme high priority at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, I could skip it because of this meeting. And like Pa said, it's quarterly. It adds leverage to say, I only have this commission meeting quarterly, and therefore I really got to be there.
It seems like Friday might work for a lot of people. Does anybody not good on a Friday?
Except please don't let this end our day on a Friday.
Yeah, can we do Friday mornings?
Yeah.
If we did it Friday before noon, then
It's called
that would fit.
cerebral saturation by the end of the week when you have a 2-hour meeting at the end of the day.
So
Right.
just throwing it out there, if we do go to a quarterly meeting, will the meeting be longer or will it stay the same? Just because I'm thinking, like, for instance, Bobby has a lot of passion and wanting to run through names and different things, and with it only being, if it were quarterly, 4 meetings instead of 12, there's not a whole lot of time to go through that process. So just wondering what are people's thoughts on that?
Well, if we go quarterly, and for example, we're reviewing place names, I'll have a lot more time to check. And, you know, as some of the members have already said, there's more urgency when it's quarterly. And when we do it monthly, sometimes I think, I'll have to get it next time because I'm busy with other stuff. So at least for me, I think I can get longer lists of names and get those done for each meeting. So we might not have as much meeting time with Bobby, for example, but we'll have at least more information available, more names that can be looked at when we do actually meet. That's some thoughts of mine.
I think it's a really good concern. I think we should try it, maybe try the 2-hour block. And if after a couple meetings we feel like we're not being productive enough or it's becoming a problem, then maybe we can entertain adjusting the frequency or the length of time.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that.
Mr. Chair, I'll always invite the chair to remind the chair that you are the facilitator and therefore you can control our overly discussion. Like today, I took advantage and I had very long discussions, and you could cut me off and then you could help me get to the point faster, and therefore it would help shorten the meeting or keep the meeting on pace for the outing.
Oh, no, mahalo, Hailama. Having everyone, as many of people here as possible and in this particular meeting and hearing everyone's thoughts is really, really important. And I know whenever we've had smaller, party, like Arthur said, maybe 3 or 4 people, we kind of miss, having these conversations, these dialogues back and forth, because we know that you might have something, Kapal might have something in mind if on a particular subject, and we just don't have you there. So yeah, I think it's really important, that we have these discussions. And yeah, I'm grateful for all of you having the experiences and EK that you're willing to share with this board.
I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe if we're wanting to get through many names, if maybe we make a motion in the beginning. I mean, I know we're using Robert's Rules of Order, but there might be a way to take advantage of some of the like polling options that we have on Zoom so that we can just get a sense, because if we have agreement, then we might not need to have discussion. If it's unanimous from the beginning that we all
Yeah.
agree, let's do X, Y, and Z, then we can focus on the ones that need more conversation, because I'm happy to talk about all of them. And I'm sure we all have mana'o, but it might help speed up the process.
Well, I will say we're not under a time deadline. At this point, we're reviewing names. The names that we're looking at now are names that have already been looked at one time or other. So place names has been looked at, Atlas of Hawaii has been looked at, Nupeba theoretically have been looked at, other sources, standard sources have been looked at. But we're re-reviewing them now to see if there are other resources that people have that might help us make a decision. So I'm sorry, I forgot why I started to say this, but that we're not in a rush. So I don't think that speed, in spite of what Bobby would like us to, really move through these naming decisions, that's not really a consideration or a priority for this board. I do like the deliberation as a non-speaker, as a non-native Hawaiian. I find the discussions especially interesting and educational. So for me, it's an educational experience. I don't mind that at all. But I'm fully on board with what Lily suggested. Let's try a 2-hour meeting and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. So are we all in favor of a quarterly meeting? And if so, when do we want to start it in the new year? In February?
As late as possible.
I should.
Go in March, maybe?
Yeah, I
Because
think
it would be-
March is.
Because if it's
Sorry.
March, then it would be March, June, September, and December. Those would be the 4 months.
Yeah.
Could we do like February?
Yeah.
Because it runs into Christmas, and then we're gonna end up in
Yeah.
Christmas. Folks are
No,
not gonna want to.
I completely agree. Yes.
So it's just Christmas and Thanksgiving that I'm worried about. Us just saying, "Oh, it's super busy."
Because again, if it's
just
if it's January, it's January, April, July, October. And then February, of course, February, May, August, November.
February works, or even towards the end.
February is okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
Okay.
good. February.
Find a quarterly meeting time that works for us.
So February, sorry.
May,
February,
May, August, and November.
Okay, November is Whipsy. But you
So
can just avoid Whipsy, because I know we're gonna come back to this later and feel like we're all
Yeah.
going to Whipsy and we're having our meeting from Whipsy. That's fine.
Yeah, that
I
could be
was
fine
just
too.
gonna say, what if, I know that December, right, is challenging, but I also feel like November can be challenging as well. And I certainly am not prepared for a January meeting, even though I'd love to see y'all in just a few short weeks. But what if it was like at the beginning of the month? So then it would be in the first, like first week or two of December, and then. Sorry, I know that's harder for those of you who are stuck with that
Yeah.
academic schedule because you
That
guys have
works.
so much going on in December.
That works for me.
So early March, then we'll look at early March, June, that other month, and December,
Yeah.
September.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, I want to narrow down a day. Does second Friday? So if I don't think I heard any objections to Friday, if we do Friday morning.
Do we
Second
have
Friday.
to do Fridays? Do we
Well,
have another day other than Friday?
I don't want to do the first Tuesday of the month. Does not work.
Okay, no, not Tuesday.
Second
Okay.
Thursday.
Mondays don't work for several people.
What about Wednesdays?
Wednesdays or Thursdays are good for me.
Same here.
Wednesday, I could do something Wednesday, in the later morning and on.
I would, even if it had to be in the afternoon on a Wednesday, I just didn't want a Friday afternoon. But with me, it's the whimsical Board of Trustee meetings that we're supposed to sit in. And so if one occurs on a Wednesday, it occurs, it may not. So I wouldn't say hold off. Let's do it. And I'll try very much to be there.
Papa, how's your midweek schedule?
Yeah. So not Mondays, and I just realized when Hailama mentioned that. And Thursdays when I have Board of Regents, which is only once a month. But Wednesdays are fine. Well, I'll make it work. If it's 4 times a year, I will take that spot.
Mhm.
Okay, Marcus, I thought I heard you say Wednesday afternoon is not good for you. Is that right?
No, anything later morning and onwards is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
at the moment anyway.
Wednesday afternoon work for people 2 to 4? Is that too late?
Yeah,
Let's make it 2 to. Can we just put it on the calendar from 2 to 4:30, and then if we don't need it all, we don't need it
Yeah.
all.
Okay.
And was
my-
it second Wednesday? Was that the date we were saying? Or
Let me check real quick. Sorry. Just want to make sure the conference room is available.
Or you can just send it to me till 4:30, because if not, the stuff will get put on my calendar that starts at 4.
Yeah, second Wednesday looks good
okay,
for me.
let's just lock that in then, I guess. Second Wednesdays quarterly, starting in March.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah,
We did it.
yes. And then also just wanted to throw it out there, to add it to the next agenda. Arthur has said it before, and I'm very happy to serve as the chairperson on the board, but I've been serving as chairperson since I started in 2016. And I know it's not supposed to be a lifetime position, it's supposed to rotate. But I think maybe just have a discussion about that at the first meeting, maybe. I'm, again, if people have an interest and want to try it for a year, they can, totally do that. But, I think just to have a regular kind of check-in point for the chairperson rotation term, at least a yearly check-in, maybe starting in March.
I think for fairness, one of us should do it.
Agreed. So should we put that on the agenda to make that determination at the next meeting in March? I'm fine with that. That's been a long time, Marcus. You've done a fantastic job, but that's a long time.
And again, if there is no one interested, I'm happy to serve, but just want to give people an option, because it seems like we've never brought up this conversation ever, and so no one ever wants to just say, "Oh, I want to be the chairperson." Can I
The
do
testament to you as the chair is
that?
you had no mutiny amongst board members.
Oh. Okay, well, I just wanted to just share that and see if people's thoughts were on that. So I guess we can just add that to the agenda for March and go from there.
Yeah, let's add that to the agenda. I agree.
All right. Is there anything further that we would have to discuss?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, point of personal privilege. Arthur, you sent me a what do you call an email? I just noticed it inside of the media announcement asking about my ethics training. Just to ask for clarification, if I've done it for my work in OHA, is it the same thing, or do I have to do it again?
Yeah, I'm sorry, what kind of training?
The ethics training that we have to do for the commission. Did you not send me that we as commissioners have to do that?
Any training that you need for, I think training, oh, yes. Ethics, yes. Yes, if you've taken it for OHA, then you've taken it.
Okay.
That's the one where we just sent you our transcript, right?
Yeah, your certificate after you complete it. Yeah.
Which I gotta go find now. It's probably on my desktop somewhere, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
Yes. Is there a second?
I shall second.
Okay. Moved by Arthur, second by Meyer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Merry
Okay.
Christmas, guys. If I don't say, I won't see you until March. Merry Christmas
Yeah.
and Happy New Year.